I'm in Berlin and I'm filming in public and I'm really terrified of filming in public, which is why I'm hiding in the corner in Mauer Park right now. I've already been to Berlin before, so I'm not here to like sightsee or anything. I'm just here to visit friends that I have here, be with my sister, just kind of decompress. I really needed a new environment change. It's very much fall here. If you're from Berlin, please don't take offense to this, please. I love Berlin. I really, really enjoy the city, but it's not a particularly beautiful city, especially coming from Paris. Pause. I just realized I basically called Berlin ugly, but then I didn't ever follow up with that. I wanted to say it's not the most beautiful city, but it is extremely charming. Like there's just this charm that Berlin has, and that's what I really like about it. I feel like I'm in constant need of change and is the reason why I needed a career in design and becoming a freelancer and stuff, because routine and me do not go together at all. It just doesn't work. So I was in Paris working very intensely for the past few months, and I needed a change, so I came here for half a month. I'm kind of off duty now because I finished all my projects that I've been working on for the past couple of months. It's given me time to really think twice about my career trajectory and my life and what it means to be an art director and this weird off-duty part of being a freelancer that no one talks about. Literally no one talks about this, but being a freelancer means that you're in a constant cycle. So you're either working very intensely for like 1 or 2 months, and then you're gonna have downtime where you have no idea when your next paycheck is. Before we continue on with today's video, I briefly interrupt to mention today's sponsor, Kittl. If you draw, even on your sketchbook or on your iPad, doesn't even matter, if you draw at all, Kittl has a tool which is a vectorizer tool, and that is exactly what it sounds like. It will take your hand-drawn illustrations and turn it into scalable, clean vectors, which is already such a powerful thing. And it doesn't even end there. They also have something called Kittl Flows, where it will take your illustration or your vector and basically turn it into endless variations, however you want it to be, and I think is an overall a great place for creatives to brainstorm. And because Kittl is a unified platform, you're not bouncing between apps. You've got premium fonts, elements, textures, and mockups all in one place. Cut your tools, not your creativity. For someone like me who definitely hits creative blocks sometimes, or more often than I like to admit, and with me talking about experimenting with creativity just in general, Kittl is a great platform to start with, especially if you're interested in graphic design. So whether you're a designer, illustrator, or someone who just loves sketching, this is the perfect way to go from an idea to actual professional and presentable design. If you want to try Kittl out, check out my description. I have a link there for you. Go play with it and see what you can make today. You can even check it out for free and let me know how it goes. And yeah, thank you so much, Kittl, for sponsoring today's video. Now let's resume. But the thing is that when you do work really intensely, you get paid a lot more than a 9 to 5 employee. It also depends on like who your client is, of course, but ideally that would be true. Because of that, it makes up for the off-duty time, like if we're talking like financially and in monetary terms. But I have expressed in my last video about my art direction career, and I've been learning what that means for me. I know it's like not recommended to tie your work role or your job title to your life, but it's really hard to separate that when you are a freelancer. Because I am an art director and a graphic designer, I'm just naturally very creative, and it's really hard to separate my creativity that I use for work and life, if that makes any sense. And I feel like what tends to happen, especially for creative people, is that they neglect the creativity that shows up in your life and only focus on the creativity as a monetary value rather than something that you nurture and tend to. And I'm just learning what that means. How can we nurture creativity in our life? How do I use my time in these off-duty parts in the cycle?
If I'm, let's say, even tempted by something at an artist alley, It's usually not something that's like a resin ashtray or something like that. But like that's where I feel.
Yes. Come with me to hang out with my friend. We grabbed some coffee together and a treat. By the way, it was probably like 4 to 5 p.m. at this time, but Berlin gets so dark in the winter, it's kind of crazy. After that, we went to a few exhibitions. Some were really thought provoking, others left me a little confused, as you can see. But overall, super artsy day, like more than usual, I would say. And then after, we then decided to go to a hidden gallery space. Sorry, I don't remember the name, so I can't tell you for those who are in Berlin. But we even talked to some of the gallery owners, which was a pretty cool experience, and I don't see many galleries that often, so yeah, it was super fun. Okay, I want to show this journal that I got at the store that I quickly filmed myself in, and it's a German magazine that unfortunately I cannot understand. Like all the text is in German, but I thought like it was a really cool fashion magazine, and it shows all the latest editorial like photo shoots of some brands. The shopkeeper was so nice enough to give this. I really like the graphic design too. It's so simple, but there's some bold typography choices that I really liked in here as well. And then this was like, I'm not really sure what this says, unfortunately, but I thought this is cool. It's like a movie script. Um, if you are interested in graphic design, I'd highly recommend collecting magazines, especially if you travel. I love collecting magazines in different languages. I have magazines that are in Korean, I have magazines that are in French. Now I have German, English, and the collection is going to keep growing, I guess. It's also just nice inspiration to have like something tangible for when you need inspiration rather than like always having to rely on like instead of like always relying on Pinterest. I love Pinterest. I have nothing against Pinterest at all. I think it's a great way to get inspiration. I have 20 Pinterest tabs open on my laptop, like at all times. The one thing that I don't like about Pinterest is that there is not a lot of variety. I feel like a lot of the images that I see, even though, yes, it may be tailored to your, like the algorithm is tailored to your preferences and what you've saved before, but even still, there's still so few images. And I feel like the same images gets recycled on the internet. When I was creating a mood board with my sister. Like we have very different tastes in style, I would say. And I was seeing a lot of the same images on her Pinterest account that was on my Pinterest account. Pinterest is amazing, but I think nothing beats collecting, like a stash of magazines where you can just physically grab out of your desk or your shelf and just, like see images that aren't yet on the internet, you know what I mean? I think that's better for ideation in general is to draw from inspiration of magazines or I don't know, books or whatever it is that actually inspire you. And then that will help you build your style more than to develop your style on Pinterest when there's probably that image that inspires you is like already saved by millions and then it just gets recycled and the same thing gets created over and over again. And yeah, I'm like, and I think there's like a plague right now. It's not just in art direction or in graphic design, but it's also like in fashion. You see in fashion, like people are wearing the same outfits. When you go outside, you can just tell who is dressing based on their Pinterest board. And it's becoming really prevalent. And although I think it's cool, like I think it's really nice to draw inspiration from what is trending, but it could also be harmful in the creative process and it can actually in the end be inauthentic. Do I even like being an art director and a graphic designer? And I think the answer is yes. I am very happy in my life and I'm very content. And I think it's because I've had a calling for something and I tried it and I'm liking it and it just feels very satisfactory. Or that once wasn't a vision in my head and now is like reality. And I think that's why I feel very content. The pursuit of happiness is always going to be a thing in your life for sure, no matter what you have in your life or achieve in your life. But I think contentment is really the key to being happy if we're speaking like in a general perspective, because contentment means that I am already grateful for what I have. Everything that comes with it is just an addition, you know? Like it's just a bonus. I don't need anything more. And the truth of the matter is that your designer brain will never turn off, even when you are not working. I noticed that once I became an art director and I'm trying to embody what that means and embody what an art director would do, and I start to observe every little thing. I start to notice little things. I observe people, see how they dress, see how they behave, and see how they live their life in this world and what they deem as important and what they like in their style and, you know, their fashion sense and why they picked out those items and what do those little things about them tell me about them as a person. And I think that's the coolest thing about being an art director is like you start to notice all these little pieces, like puzzle pieces that you put together in a person and figure out why that person likes these things and who they are and why does it represent them, you know? And I think the biggest thing is like, you know, with first impressions is the way that they dress, their body language, maybe if they're listening to music, if they're not listening to music, what kind of music do they listen to? Are they listening to a podcast? And it's these very tiny, tiny details that make up a whole picture of someone. It's just so cool to see all the different walks of life and how every person has curated their entire life to their, you know, unique personality. And how can I, as an art director, appeal to as many personalities that exists on this planet? You know, it's just such a cool job that I never thought so much about, but now that I am and I have this job, it's like it's such an interesting challenge. If there's anything that this job gave me, it gave me the eye for detail and noticing these little things. And it grounds me too. I mean, even looking at this floor, I'm seeing all these beautiful browns and the trees in the background. Gosh, I sound so insufferable right now, but it's true. You start to see what goes together. And I started taking an interest in being more conscious of what I consume, you know, like rather than seeing how other people dress and like trying to fit in, I've actually started to feel called to experiment about my style more. And how I realized when I was a teenager, I have always bought clothes based on what was trending. And now that I'm older, I don't think I've ever really gave myself the space and reflect like what makes me me and what do I actually really like? Like what is my fashion sense? And it really broke my heart to hear that I never felt like I expressed myself outwardly and I always felt like I had to fit in. And so for the first time in my life, I'm actually looking at pieces and items, everyday objects in my life and asking myself, do I like this? And does this item represent me? And it's forced me to consume more consciously and responsibly as well. Like, it's not even just like being financially responsible, but also like it makes me happier because I cherish an item so much more when I feel like that this is me. This item in my life is an extension of me and it gets rid of so much waste and clutter. And I'm really interested in the concept of like curation nowadays and like how we curate our everyday lives, which is why it's on my mood board for 2026 is like every time I buy an item, I want it to feel like I'm buying a piece of myself. Another thing I did was, well, it's that time of the year where I had to think about my goals and my accomplishments this year. and that means what I want to envision for the upcoming year in 2026. So the only appropriate thing was to make vision boards with my sister. We first brainstormed goals for 2026 in each aspect of our lives, so that would mean relationships, finances, career, leisure, travel, etc. And then find corresponding photos for each goal that represented that to put onto our vision board. We then cut them up, pasted them on a board, and we got ourselves our very own tangible 2026 board. And yeah, if you guys aren't on this bandwagon yet, I highly recommend that you do it this year. I've been doing it for 5 years, and let me tell you, this stuff is like magic. It just helps you define what you actually want out of life and keeps you motivated to work towards them. I don't know, it's just awesome. Give it a try and see what you come up with. Like, just thinking twice about what I consume in everything, and if this really is me, and allowing myself to experiment as well, and buying things that I think is me but not because it's trendy or that I think other people would like it. And that is such a sad way to live if that is how I was for the majority of my life. And I am aware that a lot of people live like that, and I don't think that's good. I think we need to allow ourselves to be playful in our lives and like learn to experiment and get to know ourselves more and be more of a risk taker in how we dress and how we consume. I think the reason why I was burning out so much as a graphic designer was because I never explored creativity in other ways. And this YouTube channel is actually something that allowed me to experiment more and feel more comfortable in my skin and like replenish my creative side of my brain. And so I asked myself, like, if I didn't have graphic design in my life, what would I be doing? And how would I feel creative? What other ways could I be creative? In Berlin, I really loved exploring galleries and like museum visits and exhibitions and reading about how other artists think, and visiting high-end fashion stores, even though I can't afford them. But it's just really interesting to see like how the way people express themselves through their clothes. And I've been journaling a lot more too. I'm carrying my notebook literally everywhere in my purse, writing my thoughts and playing Sudoku, trying to like exercise other parts of my brain, instead of being on my phone doom scrolling in a coffee shop, and giving myself permission to freely write my thoughts, and creative writing and music production, and exploring new skills in that way. Like, just because I'm a graphic designer doesn't mean I am only bound to those limitations that I have to. The only way that I can be creative is by designing something on my computer, like in Photoshop. Like, that is not how it should be. I'm also trying to be more creative in the way that I dress. I'm thinking more intently about how I style my clothing, what pieces am I missing? And so, I don't know, I just encourage you to think more about your life, and like, if you were to be in the shoes of an art director, how would you curate your life? What would change? What would you realize is a puzzle piece in your life or in your things that don't match the overall puzzle piece that is you? I don't know, I think it's just such a cool project, and I'm very excited about the next year because I feel like I could feel myself evolving, like I feel like I'm finally stepping into myself. I feel like we don't think about that enough because we're so concerned about external things, like what people care about you, and if you make enough money, and if you're successful in society's standards. And I think really the key to contentment in life is to be satisfied with how you are and who you are, and whether you are true to yourself. Like, are you honest in how you present yourself and how you communicate, and you tell people what you like? Are you honest in those things? And I think once you are, that's one step closer to being content. And that's something that I'm learning a lot. And it's also a reason why I stepped away from social media a little bit, because I realized when I started this journey, like, of course, like, there's a huge element of like being successful in like freelance and like starting your own business, of course, like I understand that, but I was very much in this in the wrong energy for a long time. I get that like that's the energy to start with when you start with something really ambitious, when you're in like in this grinding, like ambitious mindset. But once you're in it, that's not me at my core. I think I am ambitious, but that's not like for me to chase like the big next big client like over and over and over. Like, no, I think what makes me me is just creating things that I think are cool, working with people that I like to work with, and whether that's a big or small client. And I don't necessarily need to be deemed successful in like society standards, you know what I mean? And now I'm back in Paris, and there's me just working in a cafe. One of my favorite things to do here in Paris, just going to cafes that are laptop friendly and then just working and soaking in the ambiance of Parisian coffee and cafe. And yeah, so thank you so much for watching, and I'm gonna end the video right here. Thank you. Bye.